What's the worst way to die? Being suffocated by some dickhead officer for no reason. Slowly decaying in a shitty nursing home with no one who visits. Or people who visit out of obligation and you can feel their exasperation and boredom while they visit, while you slowly lose all your functions and have no dignity left for years and years. Being buried alive, my worst fear. Being buried prematurely isn't that big a deal. It's not going to be that premature. Maybe 3 days at best. I think a man would die much earlier from suffocation, especially when panic attack kicks in. I've heard of an old execution method where they tie you up, soak your feet in salt water, then have goats lick the monsieur since their tongues are like sandpaper. They will lick your feet down to the bone. I shudder just thinking about it. That's torture, not death. If they peel away enough skin, you start bleeding out from the bottom. And thanks to gravity, you'd lose enough blood to starve your brain of oxygen. So if the goats stop licking, they'd just literally pour salt in your wounds to get them to continue. Heart attack learning you just won $100 million in the lotto. Bamboo can grow at the rate of a foot a day. In Japan they used to sharpen the ends of bamboo sticks, tied someone down above it and let the bamboo slowly grow through them, impaling and killing the monsieur. That is not a way that you want to go out. Don't worry, Japan has evolved. They do it mechanically now, so it takes longer and is more painful. Drowning in the ocean. Why the ocean and not any other water body? Thalassophobia is a serious bitch. Like the one below me who said salt burns. I have another reason. The ocean is crazy deep and some parts are undiscovered. Plus, your body would never be recoverable if it gets deep enough. Creepy sea creatures and other animals may eat the body too. Burning alive. Rabies. It can take weeks, months or years. It cannot be treated or cured. Once you show symptoms you will die. But you will endure agonizing fear before you do. Medical professionals and loved ones will watch you slowly lose your mind. And they will not have the mercy to do what is necessary. I'm sure I heard that there's only ever been one case of a human surviving rabies, and it was basically a woman who was put into a coma for months and she scraped through. Just no idea how true that was. Inflation from ants via urethra. WTF. Happy cake day. Slowly crushed to death. More weight. Falling down an endless pit. Just blackness for days on end while listening to the whooshing of the air blowing past our ears. Just to die of thirst. Confused about the nature of the pit and why God chose you to test out his supernatural bullshit. Dying silently in front of your loved ones as they are told one by one how much of an awful person you are. How selfish and egocentric and hateful you really are, whilst trying to be kind and considerate and loving despite how fucked up your childhood was. And you can't defend yourself against everything because you've been silenced, and deep down you know it's all true. And one by one your family and friends realize how awful a person you are and just walk away. And you're only allowed to die once you've seen them all give up on you and leave you. And you know that when you die you'll be forgotten about and not missed. That would kinda suck. Are you okay, bro? Lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. I have nobody. Buried alive, burning to death. Why not being buried alive while on fire? IKEA. Died figuring out a manual and then still missing some screws. I died in their labyrinth after someone switched the arrows. SCP-3008. Bleeding to death alone seems pretty scary to me. Realistically speaking, it'll only be scary at first, right? Once it gets GOIMG, you won't have enough oxygen to really think straight. And then you pass out. Edit. But yeah, the whole getting a wound that would cause you to bleed out is scary as fuck. Having your throat slit, for instance, freaks me the fuck out. A dull guillotine, again and again until it works. That probably wouldn't be too bad. Even dull. That blade is going to snap your neck and you're going to lose consciousness pretty quick. If not die outright from the broken neck. It would be similar to hanging. And then you're stuck being the ghost of Gryffindor House indefinitely. Alone, with no loved ones in your life. Without anyone noticing. Guy in my hometown fell into a concrete silo and drowned. Imagine the fear and panic as you sank into the concrete. Everything going pitch black and you start inhaling liquid concrete. Shit haunts me for some reason. Suffering from a mental illness, slowly spiraling deeper into the hole. No one believes you until you plunge a knife into your head all alone to end the suffering. Yeah, that sounds horrible. You good? Yeah, I'm fine. I've just seen it happen to others. Thanks for checking though, stranger. Death by 1,000 cuts. The pain won't kill you, it's the slow blood draining out of your body. Medieval times have some of the worst methods of killing a person. Like placing a rat on a person's stomach in a container and then creating a heat source from above. So the rat burrows through the body to escape it. That, or perhaps the breaking wheel. From a flying killer bunny. In search of the Holy Grail. Only to be solved by the holy hand grenade. Dying from stuffing so many gimpy plant leaves inside of your penis that they start to rupture your bladder wall and crush your internal organs. Are oddly specific. Google 4chan torture device and sort by images. At the hospital waiting for your friends to come visit but no one does. Oh, when they tie each of your limbs to a different horse and tell them all to go in different directions. That would suck. Alzheimer's, I reckon. I'd rather drown and know that it's happening so I can have some sort of acceptance. Slowly losing your ability to grasp what's real because you can't remember things and everything is confusing you is a living nightmare. Imagine the horror of looking at someone you love but being confused as to why they look the wrong age, or waking up not knowing where the last few years have gone. The slow, degenerative stuff is definitely the worst. Slitting your throat. This would be a relief compared to what the cartels have started doing. There was a video of Cartel Jalisco Nuevo Generacion torturing an enemy by peeling the skin off his face. Then they probably decapitated him or something. Slowly. Slowly could go either way. But slowly and painfully is no good. The brazen bull was terrifying. Basically you got stuck inside and they put a fire under the contraption. The only air you could get was through tubes that sounded like a bull screaming once you started getting toasted. Did it exist? Maybe. Is it terrifying nonetheless? Yes, it did exist. They would let crowds of people go and watch. Googled this and discovered that a pine cone falling from 90 feet will give a blow strong enough to kill you. I thought that was a coconut. Don't hang around pine cone tree with that thought. Drowning. Innocent and killed by someone meant to be there for your protection. Embarrassment. Embarrassment. Imagine the shame. On your cake day. Edit. Happy cake day up smiley face. Strangle when masturbate. WTF. The open casket one where you vomit and maggots eat you. Takes weeks. Being kicked to death by a giraffe. I looked it up and apparently giraffe kicks can decapitate a lion. Living without purpose, motivation, knowingly that one day you will die but you can't do anything against the moving of time. A slow, painful death that you will regret and torment yourself for not achieving anything in life. Edit. Sorry for bad English. Asphyxiation. Being buried alive. Heavy metal poisoning. Azide poisoning. Strychnine poisoning. Being burned to death. Radiation poisoning. Suffocation or drowning. In my opinion, I start panicking if I can't breathe and it seems like such a slow, painful way to die. Suicide. On your cake day. Happy sideways toaster day. Sideways cheese toaster. Suffocation. Starvation. Oxygen deprivation. Dehydration. Burning. Poison. And so much more. Dying isn't really that peaceful unless from natural causes. If I could choose how I was gonna go, oxygen deprivation or CO poisoning would be the way to go. Either losing cognitive ability or consciousness fast enough so you don't really get a chance to worry about the fact that you're dying. And basically just becoming real sleepy sounds like the best way, doesn't it? He died of natural causes. You pushed him off a roof. Gravity is natural. Alone. Why does this feel so much more powerful just because it's lowercase LMAO? By not dying. Rabies. Seriously. If I started showing symptoms and went to the doctor and they said I had rabies, I would be begging them to just euthanize me. Eaten by a lion or tiger or bear. There was a girl that got eaten by bear cubs, but slowly, so she could call her mother and talk before she died. I have a new fear. Oh my. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. Oh my. Falling into lava after mining diamonds. Not trying. Hunger. Being strangled, and Happy Cake Day. Drowning. Being cremated alive, whilst playing a super easy game and no, not in the game. Freezing to death by being buried when a snowplow comes by. Eaten alive by a snake. Buried alive, getting caught on fire, and drowning are my worst fears. So getting locked in a burning casket on a sinking ship would top it off. When some terminal patients deteriorate past a point they can start throwing up their own feces and choke to death on it. Sounds like a shitty way to go if you ask me. I've seen it happen in a group home. It's disturbing. He lived though. We got him to emergency. But wow. Don't know what it's called, but in the old days as torture they used to tie a metal bucket with a rat in it to your chest. Then they would heat up the bucket. The rat, having nowhere to go, would then eat through your chest. It was a slow, painful death. Getting eaten alive by a wild animal. Dementia. I work in dementia care, and seeing people be stripped of who they're in a matter of days sometimes is heartbreaking. My wife's grandmother died of ALS that targeted her throat. Over time, she had more and more trouble speaking until she was completely unintelligible. Her mind was still sharp and she knew what she wanted to say. Her vocal cords just wouldn't cooperate. Even worse was eating. As her throat muscles degraded, her diet for more and more limited. She needed to rely on softer and softer foods. Towards the end, she couldn't eat at all. She subsisted on watermelon juice and water absorbed into a sponge and squeezed into her mouth. Most would come out of her mouth, but some would go down her throat. She was still perfectly aware of what was happening. She was conscious of how hungry she was, how weak she was getting, and how she couldn't communicate this easily to other people. Eventually, she was so weak that she fell asleep and didn't wake up for a couple of days before dying. Being paralyzed by tranquilizers while sand crabs pick at your body in 105-degree heat. Execution via testicle crushing happened during the Middle Ages apparently. It was the only kind of execution that crowds didn't enjoy watching. Description below is extremely NSFL. Greater than. Testicle crushing as punishments were performed as slowly as possible to worsen the intensity of the victim's agony and lengthen its duration. Standard practice in France from the Middle Ages to the French Revolution was to crush the condemned's testicles in a vice, which burst them as mush from the scrotum. Then crunch the spermatic cords with pliers. The condemned was turned upside down in order to maximize the blood flow to his brain, after which he was unable to pass out or enter a state of shock until, perhaps, the last few seconds of his ordeal. The condemned was sure to vomit repeatedly with violent convulsions, even well after he had voided the contents of his stomach. But he rarely screamed except for an initial shriek, which immediately silenced, because the pain overwhelmed his ability to breathe. Most men would hang and thrash wildly during and after the crushing of each testicle, and their thrashing would renew upon the crushing of each spermatic cord. The process would last an entire day. This torture method, accompanied by others, was usually reserved for the crime of regicide or attempted regicide. The event was witnessed by large crowds. It is interesting to note that, whereas most crowds were instructed to jeer, mock, and ridicule the condemned, and did so even during a disemboweling and drawing and quartering, most crowds remained silent and stared with shocked expressions as a castration was carried out in this manner. Onlookers, male and female, are recorded to have vomited at the sight of the spectacle. Less than in lava with your diamond armor. You mean in real life? Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.